She signed the divorce papers in silence. No argument, no tears, no demands. Her ex-husband smirked, believing he had just shed dead weight. But when she walked out of the courthouse into the rain, carrying nothing, not even looking back, a black limousine pulled up slowly in front of her. The man who opened the door was not a driver. It was her lawyer, a single father who had always stood in the background. Why was he there? The courthouse hallway smelled like old carpet and fluorescent lights. Claire Whitmore sat on a wooden bench outside the hearing room, hands folded in her lap, waiting for her name to be called. She wore a gray sweater and jeans. Nothing special. Nothing that would draw attention. That was the point. Across from her, David Whitmore leaned against the wall, scrolling through his phone. He did not look at her. He had not looked at her in months. Not really. His lawyer stood beside him, a man in an expensive suit who kept checking his watch as if this entire process was beneath his billable hours. Claire's lawyer was different. Ryan Cole sat next to her, briefcase on his lap, saying nothing. He had learned early on that she did not need reassurance. She needed space. He gave her that. It was the first time in years anyone had given her anything without expecting something back. When the clerk called their names, Claire stood without hesitation. David pushed off the wall and followed his lawyer inside. Ryan walked beside Claire, close enough that she could feel his presence, but far enough that it did not feel intrusive. The room was small, sterile, designed to process lives as quickly as possible. The judge barely looked up. He read through the terms. No children, no shared property, no alimony, no contest. Claire had asked for nothing. The judge asked if both parties agreed to the terms. David said yes immediately. Claire said yes a moment later. Her voice was steady. The judge signed. 20 minutes. That was how long it took to end 5 years. David turned to leave before the ink dried. His lawyer followed. At the door, David glanced back, not at Claire, but at Ryan, and smirked. "Good luck with that," he said, nodding toward Claire, as if she were a broken appliance someone else would have to deal with now. Ryan did not respond. Claire stood, picked up her purse, and walked out without looking at either of them. She left her wedding ring on the table. No one noticed. 3 months earlier, Claire had walked into Ryan Cole's office for the first time. The receptionist had led her to a small conference room with a glass table and 2 chairs. Ryan entered a few minutes later, carrying a yellow legal pad and a pen. He wore a suit, but no tie. His sleeves were rolled up. He sat down across from her and asked why she wanted a divorce. Most lawyers started with the paperwork. He started with the why. Claire had prepared an answer. Something clinical. Something that would not invite follow-up questions. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was simpler. "I want to leave. I do not need anything. I just need it to end." Ryan wrote that down. Then he looked up at her. "What about shared assets? Property? Savings?" She shook her head. "I do not want any of it." He set his pen down and studied her. Most of his clients came in angry or devastated, or both. They wanted revenge or justice, or at least some measure of control. Claire did not seem to want anything except distance. "You are entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage," he said carefully. "That is the law." She met his eyes. "I know. I do not care." Ryan did not push. He made a note and moved on. When they finished, Ryan walked her to the door. As she was leaving, he said something she had not expected. "You do not have to give up everything to be free." She looked at him, startled. He did not say anything else. He just nodded and went back to his office. The marriage had not started cruel. It had started normal. David was an accountant at a mid-sized firm. Claire worked as a freelance graphic designer. They met at a coffee shop where she was sketching logos on napkins, and he was reviewing tax forms. They dated for a year. He proposed at the same coffee shop. She said yes because it felt like the next logical step. Everyone told her she was lucky. David had a stable job. He was responsible. He was safe. The first 2 years were fine. She took on fewer clients to help him prepare for a promotion. He said it would only be temporary. She believed him. When he got the promotion, he took her out to dinner and thanked her. She thought that meant something. By the 3rd year, the thank yous stopped. He started working late. When he came home, he was irritated. The apartment was never clean enough. Dinner was never ready on time. She tried harder. It didn't matter. He found new things to criticize. Her clothes, her hair, the way she spoke too quietly in public. His friends started making jokes. At a company party, one of them asked David how he managed to keep his wife so low maintenance. David laughed and said, "She does not cost much. That is the upside." Claire was standing 3 feet away. She smiled because she did not know what else to do. Later, in the car, she asked if he really thought that was funny. He sighed and said she was too sensitive. She stopped asking after that. By the 5th year, David barely acknowledged her existence. She spent most evenings alone, watching the walls, wondering when she had stopped being a person and become furniture. One morning, she woke up and looked in the bathroom mirror. She did not recognize herself, not because she looked different, because she looked empty. That afternoon, she searched for divorce lawyers. She picked Ryan because his website did not have smiling stock photos or promises of revenge. It just said he helped people move forward. That was all she wanted. The second time Claire met with Ryan, she brought financial documents. He reviewed them while she sat across from him, hands folded. After a few minutes, he looked up. "Your husband earns $78,000 a year. You have no income listed." She explained she had stopped working 3 years ago. He asked about the savings account in David's name only. She admitted she used to contribute before she stopped working. Ryan leaned back in his chair. "You are entitled to claim a portion of that. You are also entitled to alimony, given the circumstances." Claire shook her head. "I do not want his money." Ryan's voice was firm, but not unkind. "This is not about what you want. This is about what you are owed." She looked down at her hands. "I just want to leave. If I ask for anything, he will fight. It will take longer. I cannot do that." Ryan watched her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right. But I need you to understand something. Asking for what you deserve is not the same as being greedy. And leaving with nothing is not the same as being strong." The 3rd time they met, David had started sending her messages. Ryan saw one of them when Claire's phone lit up on the table between them. The screen showed a preview. "You think you are brave? You are nothing without me." Claire grabbed the phone and turned it over. Ryan finished reviewing a document, then looked up. "If he is harassing you, we can file a restraining order." She shook her head. "It is fine." His voice was clear. "It is not fine. You do not have to put up with that. Not from him. Not from anyone." Ryan handed her a business card with his cell number written on the back. "If he escalates, you call me. Day or night. Understood?" She took the card. She did not call, but she kept it in her wallet. The week before the hearing, Claire sat across from Ryan one last time. He walked her through what would happen. The judge would review the terms. Both parties would confirm. It would be over in less than 30 minutes. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Once it is final, you cannot go back and renegotiate." She nodded. "I'm sure." He studied her. "Can I ask you something? Why are you doing this? Giving up everything, I mean. Is it because you are scared of him?" She thought about that. "No. I am scared of me. I am scared that if I fight him, I will become someone I do not recognize. I have already lost enough of myself. I do not want to lose the rest." Ryan did not argue. Okay, then we will do it your way. Before she left, he said something she would remember later. You are stronger than you think. Someday you will see that. She almost believed him. Now, standing outside the courthouse in the rain, Claire felt nothing. Not relief, not sadness, just exhaustion. She had no umbrella, no plan, no idea where to go next. She stood there, letting the rain soak through her sweater, because moving forward required energy she did not have. Behind her, Ryan stood in the doorway, watching. He had planned to leave. His daughter was waiting at home. He had done his job. The case was closed. But when he saw Claire standing motionless in the rain, something stopped him. He made a decision he had been holding back for 3 months. He walked to his car, started the engine, and drove around the block. When he pulled up in front of her, he did not honk. He just stopped, opened the door, and waited. Ryan sat in the driver's seat, engine idling, watching Claire through the rain-streaked windshield. She had not moved. She just stood there on the curb, soaked through, staring at nothing. He told himself to drive away. His daughter was at home with the babysitter. He had already crossed enough lines today by coming back. But his hand stayed on the wheel and the car stayed parked. 3 years ago, his wife died in a car accident on the interstate. A drunk driver had crossed the median at 2 in the afternoon. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. Their daughter, Emma, had been at daycare. Ryan had been in court, arguing a custody case. He got the call during a recess. After that, everything blurred. The funeral, the condolences, the sudden, crushing responsibility of raising a 7-year-old alone while trying to hold his practice together. He had promised himself he would not let anyone else into that space. It was not about fear of loss. It was about focus. Emma needed stability. He needed control. Relationships were messy. They required vulnerability. He had stopped being vulnerable the day he identified his wife's body at the hospital. But Claire was different. She had walked into his office 3 months ago and sat down like someone who had already disappeared. No anger, no desperation, just quiet surrender. Most clients wanted someone to fix it. Claire just wanted permission to leave. Over the following weeks, he had watched her shrink further into herself. Every time she came to his office, she looked smaller. Not physically, spiritually. Like she was erasing herself one decision at a time. Now, sitting in his car, he realized he had been worrying about her for months. That was the problem. She was a client. The case was over. His job was done. But when he saw her standing in the rain with nowhere to go, he could not drive away. Not because he wanted to save her, but because he knew what it felt like to stand alone in the wreckage and wonder if anyone would notice if you disappeared. He turned off the engine, grabbed an umbrella from the passenger seat, and stepped out into the rain. Claire heard the car door close behind her, but did not turn around. Then she heard footsteps and a voice she recognized. "It is cold. You should not be standing here." She turned. Ryan stood a few feet away, holding an umbrella over his head. His suit jacket was already damp. Claire stared at him, confused. "Why are you still here?" He gestured toward his car. "I was leaving. Then I saw you." She looked down at her hands. They were shaking. "I just needed a minute." Ryan stepped closer and held the umbrella over both of them. The rain drummed against the fabric. "Where are you going?" She did not answer right away. The truth was, she had no idea. Leaving David had taken everything she had. Planning what came next felt impossible. "I will figure it out," she said finally. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded toward his car. "Let me give you a ride." She shook her head. "You do not have to do that." He glanced at her phone, still clutched in her hand. The screen was black. "Your battery is dead." Ryan did not push. He just stood there, holding the umbrella, waiting for her to decide. That was what struck her most. He was not telling her what to do. He was offering her a choice. No one had done that in years. "Where would you take me?" she asked quietly. "Somewhere warm. Somewhere you can sit for a while." She searched his face, looking for pity or judgment or some hidden motive. She found none of those things, just patience. After a long silence, she nodded. Ryan walked her to the car and opened the passenger door. She hesitated before getting in, as if crossing that threshold meant something she could not take back. Then she slid into the seat, and he closed the door gently behind her. The inside of the car was warm and quiet. Classical music played softly through the speakers. Claire folded her hands in her lap and stared out the window as Ryan drove. He did not try to fill the silence with small talk. He just drove, his hands steady on the wheel. After a few minutes, Claire spoke. "Why did you come back?" Ryan kept his eyes on the road. "Because you looked like you did not know where to go." She turned to look at him. "Then why?" He considered his answer. "Because 3 months ago you walked into my office and asked for nothing, and I've been thinking about that ever since." Claire turned back to the window. The rain was lighter now, just a drizzle, but the sky was still gray. "I'm not used to people helping me," she said after a while. Ryan glanced at her. "I know." She pressed her lips together. "I do not want you to think I need saving." He shook his head. "I do not think that. I think you have been surviving on your own for a long time. And I think you deserve a break." Something inside Claire cracked. Not loudly. Just a small fissure in the wall she had built around herself. "I don't know what I am supposed to do now," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan's voice was calm and certain. "You don't have to know yet. You just have to keep going." They drove for 20 minutes before Ryan pulled into a small parking lot. Claire looked up and saw a narrow storefront with a hand-painted sign that read, "Parker's Noodle House." The windows glowed with warm yellow light. A few people sat inside at mismatched tables, eating from steaming bowls. Claire looked at Ryan, confused. "What is this?" He turned off the engine. "A place I go when I need to think. The owner does not ask questions. The food is good. And it is quiet." She studied the restaurant through the windshield. It was nothing like the places David used to take her. No white tablecloths, no wine list, just a small, humble space that smelled like garlic and ginger. "You come here often?" she asked. "Sometimes. When work gets heavy. You do not have to come in if you do not want to. I can take you somewhere else." Claire thought about that. She could ask him to take her to a motel, or back to the apartment she used to share with David, though the lease was in his name and she had no key anymore. Or she could sit in this warm, quiet restaurant and eat something that was not microwaved leftovers. "Okay," she said. They got out of the car and walked to the entrance. Ryan held the door open for her. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of broth and spices. A woman in her 60s stood behind the counter, wiping down menus. When she saw Ryan, her face lit up. "Ryan, long time no see," he smiled. "Hi, Mrs. Parker. Busy tonight?" She glanced at Claire, then back at Ryan, her expression curious but kind. "Slow night. Good for you. You bring a friend." Ryan introduced them. "This is Claire. Claire, this is Mrs. Parker. She makes the best noodles in the city." Mrs. Parker waved a hand dismissively. "He always says that. Sit, sit. I make you something good." They took a table near the window. Mrs. Parker brought them water and disappeared into the kitchen. Claire looked around the restaurant. The walls were covered with faded photographs and handwritten notes from customers. Everything felt lived in, comfortable, real. "How did you find this place?" she asked. Ryan took a sip of water. "A client recommended it years ago. I came here after a hard case and just kept coming back." She looked at him. "Do you bring a lot of people here?" He shook his head. "Not really, just Emma sometimes. Claire looked at him, surprised. Your daughter? He nodded. Yeah. She loves the egg noodles. It was the first time he had mentioned his daughter in front of her. Claire had known he was a single father. It was on his website, but he had never talked about it during their meetings. How old is she? Claire asked. 7. She nodded slowly. That must be hard, doing this job and raising a kid on your own. Ryan set his glass down. It is. But she's worth it. There was something in his voice when he said that. Not sadness exactly, more like quiet determination. Claire recognized it because she used to have it too, before David wore it down to nothing. Mrs. Parker returned with 2 bowls of noodle soup. The broth was clear and fragrant, with slices of pork, bok choy, and soft-boiled eggs floating on top. She set the bowls down with a smile. Eat. You both look too skinny. Claire picked up her chopsticks and took a bite. The broth was rich and comforting, the kind of warmth that sank all the way down. She realized she had not eaten all day. Ryan ate in silence, not watching her, just giving her space. After a few minutes, Claire set down her chopsticks and looked at him. Can I ask you something? He nodded. Of course. She met his eyes. Why did you become a lawyer? He considered the question. I wanted to help people who felt like they didn't have a voice. Divorce is messy. It brings out the worst in people. But sometimes, it also gives them a chance to start over. I wanted to be part of that. Claire nodded slowly. Do you ever regret it? He set down his chopsticks. Sometimes, when I see people destroy each other over things that do not matter. But then I meet someone like you, and I remember why I do it. She looked at him, surprised. Someone like me? He met her eyes. Someone who knows what they want, even if what they want is just peace. Claire felt something shift inside her. It was small, like the first breath after being underwater too long. She picked up her chopsticks again and kept eating. They finished their meal in comfortable silence. Mrs. Parker brought them tea and refused to let Ryan pay, insisting it was on the house. He thanked her and left a $20 bill on the table anyway. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean and cold. Claire stood on the sidewalk, pulling her damp sweater tighter around herself. Ryan walked her back to the car, but did not open the door right away. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at her. Where do you want to go now? He asked. She did not know how to answer. She had no home, no plan, no sense of what came next. For 5 years, her life had revolved around David. Now that he was gone, there was nothing left but empty space. I do not know, she admitted. Ryan studied her. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Someone answered on the second ring. Hey, it is me, Ryan said. Can you stay another hour? Something came up. He listened, then nodded. Thanks. I owe you. He hung up and looked at Claire. There is a motel a few blocks from here. It is clean. Safe. I can take you there if you want. Or I can take you somewhere else. Your call. Claire felt the weight of the day pressing down on her. The hearing. The rain. The sudden, terrifying freedom of having nothing left to lose. She wanted to say she was fine, that she could handle it on her own. But she was so tired of lying. The motel is fine, she said quietly. Ryan nodded and opened the car door for her. She got in, and they drove through the dark streets in silence. After a few minutes, Claire spoke. You did not have to do this. He kept his eyes on the road. I know. She looked at him. So why did you? He was quiet for a long moment. Because 3 months ago, you sat in my office and told me you did not need anything, and I did not believe you. I still do not. Claire's throat tightened. What do you think I need? He answered without hesitation. I think you need someone to tell you that you are not a burden, that asking for help does not make you weak, and that you deserve more than what you settled for." She turned away and stared out the window, blinking hard. She did not cry. She had trained herself not to cry in front of people, but the tears were there, just beneath the surface, waiting. Ryan pulled into the parking lot of a small motel. The sign out front read, "Maplewood Inn." It was modest, but well kept, with a row of clean rooms facing the street. He parked near the office and turned off the engine. "Wait here," he said. He got out and walked into the office. Through the window, Claire watched him talk to the clerk. A few minutes later, he returned with a key card. "Room 12, he said, handing it to her. "It is paid for the week. If you need more time, let me know." Claire stared at the key card. "I cannot let you do that." His expression was calm but firm. "You are not letting me. I am doing it." She wanted to argue. "Ryan, this is too much." He looked at her directly. "Claire, you just walked away from 5 years of your life with nothing. Let me do this. Please." She wanted to tell him she did not need his charity. But the truth was, she did need it. She needed it desperately. And for the first time in years, someone was offering help without expecting anything in return. "Okay," she whispered. Ryan walked her to the room and unlocked the door. Inside it was small but clean. A bed with white sheets, a lamp, a window with thin curtains. It was not much, but it was hers. Ryan handed her the key card. "If you need anything, call me, day or night." She nodded, unable to speak. He turned to leave, but she stopped him. "Ryan," he looked back. "Thank you." He gave her a small, almost sad smile. "You do not have to thank me." Then he left, and Claire was alone. Claire stood in the middle of the motel room after Ryan left, staring at the closed door. The silence pressed in around her, thick and unfamiliar. For 5 years, silence had meant David's disapproval. It meant she had done something wrong, said something stupid, failed to meet some invisible standard. But this silence was different. It was hers. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. The room was plain. Beige walls. A television bolted to the dresser. A small desk with a lamp. Nothing personal. Nothing that belonged to anyone. For the first time in years, she was in a space where no one had expectations of her. No one was keeping score. No one was waiting for her to fail. She pulled her phone out of her purse, even though the battery was dead, and stared at the black screen. If it had been charged, there would have been messages. David had sent 3 this morning before the hearing, each one angrier than the last. She had stopped reading them after the first. She knew what they would say. That she was nothing. That she had wasted his time. That leaving him was the biggest mistake she would ever make. But sitting here now, in this quiet room with white sheets and a locked door, she did not feel like she had made a mistake. She felt like she had finally stopped making one. Claire lay back on the bed and closed her eyes. The exhaustion hit her all at once, a wave so heavy she could barely breathe. She thought about Ryan, the way he had stood in the rain, holding an umbrella over her without asking for anything in return. The way he had driven her to a place that was not expensive or impressive, just warm. The way he had paid for a week at this motel and walked away before she could argue. She did not understand him. Men like David did not do things without a reason. There was always a transaction. Always a debt. But Ryan had not asked for anything. Not once. And that scared her more than she wanted to admit. Because if there was no debt, that meant his kindness was real. And if it was real, that meant she had to decide whether she deserved it. 3 weeks passed. Claire stayed in the motel room longer than she intended. She had thought she would leave after a few days, find a job, figure out a plan. But every morning, she woke up and could not bring herself to move forward. Not because she was afraid, but because she was tired. Tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of being someone she was not. She spent most of her time sitting by the window, watching cars pass on the street below. She walked to the convenience store a block away when she needed food. She avoided mirrors. On the 4th day, her phone finally died completely, and she did not bother charging it. On the 10th day, she realized she had not spoken out loud in 48 hours. On the 15th day, she opened her laptop for the first time since the divorce and stared at the blank screen for 20 minutes before closing it again. She was not depressed. She knew what depression felt like. This was different. This was the aftermath, the quiet space between what she had been and what she had not yet become. She was learning how to exist without someone telling her who to be. It was harder than she expected. On the 18th day, someone knocked on the door. Claire looked up from the bed, startled. She was not expecting anyone. The motel staff only came by once a week to replace the towels, and they had already done that 2 days ago. She stood slowly and walked to the door, peering through the peephole. It was Ryan. She opened the door halfway, suddenly aware of how she must look. She had not showered that morning. Her hair was tied back in a messy knot. She was wearing the same sweatpants she had worn for 3 days. Ryan stood on the other side, holding a paper bag. He looked the same as he always did. Suit. No tie. Calm expression. But there was something different in his eyes. Relief, maybe. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she replied. They stood there for a moment, neither of them speaking. Then Ryan held up the bag. "I brought lunch, if you're hungry." Claire looked at the bag, then at him. "How did you know I was still here?" He answered simply. "I called the front desk yesterday. They said you had not checked out." She did not know what to say. Part of her wanted to be annoyed that he had checked on her, but mostly, she was just surprised that someone had thought to. "Can I come in?" he asked. She stepped aside and let him in. He set the bag on the small desk and pulled out 2 containers. One was soup, the other was a sandwich. He opened the soup and handed it to her. "From Mrs. Parker," he said. "She asked about you." Claire took the container. The soup was still warm. "You told her about me?" He nodded. "Not much, just that you were starting over." She sat down on the edge of the bed and opened the lid. The smell of ginger and garlic filled the room. She realized she had not eaten anything hot in days, just crackers and instant noodles from the convenience store. Ryan sat in the chair by the desk and unwrapped his sandwich. He did not ask her how she was doing. He did not ask why she had not left the motel yet. He just ate in silence, giving her space to exist without having to explain herself. After a few minutes, Claire spoke. "Why did you come here?" Ryan set down his sandwich and looked at her. "Because I wanted to make sure you were okay." She stirred the soup with her spoon. "I am okay." He met her eyes. "Are you?" She did not answer right away. "I do not know what I am." Ryan nodded slowly. "That is fair." She set down her spoon. "I thought I would feel different after the divorce. I thought I would feel free, but I just feel empty." His voice was gentle. "That is normal. You spent 5 years being someone else. It takes time to remember who you are." Claire looked up at him. "What if I don't remember?" Ryan met her eyes. "Then you get to decide who you want to be now." She thought about that. For 5 years, David had told her who she was. Worthless. Forgettable. A waste of space. She had believed him because it was easier than fighting. But sitting here now, with soup warming her hands, and Ryan sitting across from her without judgment, she realized something. David had been wrong. Not because she was special, or strong, or any of the things people said to make themselves feel better, but because she was still here. And that had to mean something. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said. "Of course." She met his eyes. "Why do you care? About me, I mean. You do not even know me." Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I know what it is like to lose yourself. After my wife died, I spent a year trying to hold everything together. Work, Emma, the house. I thought if I just kept moving, I would be fine. But I was not fine. I was barely functioning. And the only reason I made it through was because people showed up. Not to fix me, just to sit with me. To remind me I was not invisible." Claire felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry. About your wife." He nodded. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a while. Claire finished her soup. Ryan finished his sandwich. When he stood to leave, Claire walked him to the door. "Ryan," she said, as he was about to step outside. He turned back. "Thank you. For checking on me." He gave her a small smile. "Anytime." Before he left, he pulled a business card out of his pocket and set it on the desk. "That is my cell number. If you need anything, call me, even if it is just to talk." She nodded. He left, and the room fell silent again. But this time, the silence did not feel so heavy. 2 days later, Claire called him, not because she needed anything, but because she wanted to hear a voice that did not make her feel small. Ryan answered on the second ring. "Hi," she said. "Hi," he replied. "I'm sorry for calling." His voice was warm. "Do not be." She did not know what to say after that. She just stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear, listening to him breathe on the other end. "Are you okay?" he asked after a moment. "I think so. I just wanted to talk to someone." He did not hesitate. "Okay. What do you want to talk about?" She thought about that. "I do not know. Something normal." So they talked. About the weather. About the restaurant down the street that made terrible coffee. About a book Ryan was reading to his daughter before bed. Nothing important. Nothing heavy. Just two people filling the space with words that did not hurt. When they hung up an hour later, Claire felt lighter. 3 weeks after the divorce, Claire walked into a coffee shop with her laptop. She ordered a black coffee and sat by the window. She opened a blank document and stared at it for 10 minutes. Then she started typing. Not a resume, not a cover letter, just words, thoughts. Ideas she had not allowed herself to think in years. She wrote about design, about the projects she used to love, about the clients she used to have before David convinced her to stop working. She wrote until her coffee went cold. Then she ordered another and kept writing. By the time she left, she had the outline of a portfolio. It was not much, but it was hers. That night, her phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "Emma asked if you like egg noodles. She wants to know if you will come to dinner sometime." Claire stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "Tell her? I would love that." The dinner happened a week later. Ryan picked her up at the motel and drove her to Mrs. Parker's restaurant. When they walked in, a small girl with dark hair and bright eyes waved at them from a corner table. Emma. She was wearing a purple sweater and holding a coloring book. "Hi, Miss Claire," she said, grinning. Claire smiled. It was the first real smile she had felt in months. "Hi, Emma." They sat down, and Mrs. Parker brought out 3 bowls of egg noodles. Emma talked the entire time, telling Claire about school and her favorite cartoons and the drawings she had made that week. Ryan sat quietly, watching his daughter with a look of pure contentment. Claire listened, laughing at Emma's jokes, answering her questions, feeling something inside her start to heal. Not because Ryan had saved her, but because he had given her something no one else had in years. A seat at the table, a place where she was welcome, a reminder that she still existed. When dinner ended, Ryan drove her back to the motel. Before she got out of the car, she turned to him. "I'm going to start looking for work," she said. "I think I am ready." Ryan smiled. "Good." She met his eyes. "And I want to pay you back. For the motel. For everything." He shook his head gently. "You do not have to." She nodded firmly. "I know. But I want to." He considered that, then nodded. "Okay." She got out of the car and walked to her room. When she opened the door, she turned back and saw Ryan still sitting there, watching to make sure she got inside safely. She waved. He waved back. Then he drove away. Claire closed the door and sat on the bed. She pulled out her laptop and opened the portfolio she had been working on. She looked at the designs she had created years ago, back when she still believed in herself. Then she opened a new file and started creating again,